let's talk about. So for those of you I have not met yet, I've met. Oh, do I have to, what do I do? Do I hold this?
You can hold it or put it up.
Okay, yeah, I'll use them. All right, is that better?
On off switch.
Is that better? Is that better? Is that better? Okay, yeah, I still want to be heard. Anyway, for those of you that don't know me, I'm Lisa Sampson. I'm your director of faith formation. And we're going to talk about faith formation, and we're going to talk about the history of the church in the last 30 years or so, and what's been happening. And address the most common question I have is, where are the youth? So we're going to get to all that today. A little bit about me. I grew up in Duluth. I attended First Lutheran Church. I was a church board. My dad was president of the council many times over. They taught Sunday school. If I wasn't at home and I wasn't at school, I was usually at church. And I majored in elementary education. And I minored in art and children's literature. And Eric is talking loud and they're telling me what. After college, there were no teaching jobs. It was the 80s and there were no jobs. And so I went into sales and marketing. And it was about, oh gosh, a handful of years after that, about 25 years ago, that I finally listened to God's call to go into youth ministry. It's funny because my very first major in college was youth ministry. And I bailed on it. It was at St. Scholastica. They kept talking about diocese, and I didn't know what a diocese was. I was very lost. And they also talked about Yahweh. So in my later years, I went to seminary and found out all those great things. So for over 20 years, I've been a speaker and trainer and curriculum writer for a company called Genon Ministries, which is a intergenerational resource for churches company. And through my work with Genon, I've had the privilege of going into churches all across this country in all different denominations and talk to them about what's going on in their churches. And it's been really interesting from small churches to medium to large. And being in Minnesota, they're always astounded at the number of people we worship on a Sunday morning, especially when I'm on the East Coast or the West Coast, because we're huge in the Midwest compared to the East Coast, compared to the coasts. So I get to learn from other people what's going on, and that's been really helpful in helping kind of shape my ministry. Like I said, most often question that we get, Pastor Sarah got it at her meet and greet just this last week, is where are all the youth? And how are you going to get them back? I've been asked that over and over. How am I going to get them back? So we're going to take a brief journey to find out where all the youth are and how it's not my job to get them back, but it's all of our job. And do we get them back or do we start over? So as I said, being part of the church was central to who I was and am. It informed where I went to school. It informed how I raised my own children, and it informed my vocation. And I, like many of you and others out there, assumed that church would remain a constant in our communities, never changing. And boy, was I wrong. I've been in youth ministry long enough to remember those glory days. I remember that day I started my ministry at the Cambridge Lutheran. I lived in that community and raised my kids there. And I started in the spring of the year, and I had about 30 high school kids in my youth group. We were a choir. And there was 30 kids. Over the summer, we went on a tour, and in the fall, over 110 kids showed up. And I went, oh my word, we're gonna need more adults and snacks. I didn't know what to do. There were so many kids. And of course, that number dwindled a little bit as we got going, which was actually a relief because that's a lot of kids.
What church was it?
Cambridge Lutheran.
I missed, okay.
Yep, Cambridge Lutheran. And I served there for many years, and that's where my kids were raised. I was my child, my two older kids, I was their youth leader, so for them. So even as I was welcoming all those kids, church membership was already on the decline. From 2007 to 2014, mainline Protestant congregation adults declined by nearly 5 million, and Roman Catholics lost 3 million. Max Dupree of Fuller Theological Seminary said, "The first job of a leader is to define reality." The unfortunate reality is that most churches are not growing, and they are not getting younger. As adults have left the church, that has greatly impacted the number of youth who've left the church. But youth have also left the church, even if their parents are still going. So in no particular order, here are some reasons why youth have left church. Young people did not feel accepted. They graduated from high school. They do not feel a connection to church. They have many, many choices in their busy lives. They disagree with social and/or political ideals of their church. And parents have not made connecting at church a priority in their own lives. People holding PhDs in theology and ministry have been studying this. The statistics have been analyzed, books have been written, and workshops were being held to try to figure all this out. All agreed, if the church is to survive, young people must be involved. Tara Powell, in her 2016 book, Growing Young, identified 6 core commitments that your church needs to keep growing and to keep growing young. So young people need to be empowered by church leadership. Local ministry guru Lyle Reiner says, if the youth aren't leading, they're leaving. So not just coming here to youth group and not just coming, but being involved in leading what's going on, leading committees, leading in worship, all those kinds of things. The church must empathize with young people and accept them without judgment or criticism for blue hair, torn jeans, and all that. You know how, when you're different from somebody, a group, and you walk in, have you ever had that experience? And boy, is it hard, and those kids recognize those looks. And I've done it too, when, kids notice that. So the third thing is take Jesus's message seriously by welcoming young people, not just teaching them about Jesus, but giving them an arena into a Jesus-centered way of life. That means that all the stuff that churches do that's very human, like the little squabbles that we have and the arguments over all sorts of things, kids hear that, pick up on it, and that's not Jesus-centered. The fourth thing is to fuel a warm community. Now, a warm community can mean lots of different things, but this one is in utilizing peer relationships. Those kids need to be connected to their peers, and more importantly, the generations, not just their own age. Okay? They have that in school. They need all the generations impacting their lives. Number 5, prioritize families and young people everywhere. Look for creative ways to be supportive, to resource them, and involve them in all facets of the ministry, not just the Easter breakfast. Now, I know that's not a thing here, and I was very happy to see that. But we expect the youth to kind of do the work that we don't want to. Oh, let's get the youth to do that. We can have the youth pick up the garbage in the parking lot. We can have the youth direct traffic, although they might like that job. So we expect them to do a lot of things that we just aren't really wanting to do ourselves. And the last thing on the list is to be the best neighbors. We don't condemn the world outside of our church walls because, was it Pastor Sarah just recently said, this building is not the church, we are the church. And so we need to look outside of ourselves, globally and in our own communities and our nation. So many church leaders were paying attention and trying to figure things out. Then COVID hit, and everything that we knew and were trying to do went out the door, literally. So here we are, post-pandemic. We all tried lots of really creative things. Actually, if you think about it, I studied leadership and innovation at Luther Seminary. And so I know all about innovation, right? And then COVID hit and I went, I don't want to do this. Because we've never been in that position before. But we were gifted with wonderful technology and all sorts of new ways of doing ministry. And I think that what happened is when COVID hit, really good churches with really good people in them actually did some really good work that we would have been doing maybe 10, 20 years from now, but we had to do it right now if we were going to survive. And a lot of churches did it. So here we are, post-pandemic, there's been some damage done. How do we get the youth back? And I think the answer is that we can't. We aren't getting those high school kids that are no longer involved in our churches come back. They lost a couple of years of being involved in their group. They lost a couple of years of not being able to do the things they were used to doing, and they have latched on to other things. And a lot of those other things are really healthy and good, and we need to bless that and let them go. But we have younger kids that are here, especially our middle school age, and that's where we need to focus our ministry and attention on. So the better question to wrestle with, like I said, is what do we do with those that are here? How do we grow them into young adult disciples? I don't know about you, but when I, being a big faithful, Lutheran, I never dreamed there would be a time that I would go to church. But I graduated from high school and I went to college. And guess what? I didn't go to church. I would go Christmas and Easter when I was home with my parents. I would go, at different occasions. I taught VBS a couple summers. But for that was all. And then when I became a working person, it wasn't until I had kids that I went back to church and got involved again. And that happens a lot of times. And that's okay. I don't know if that happened to anybody here. Yeah, it's reality. So it's going to take entire congregations working together to build the church, to rebuild our youth. And my big wondering in this fall is, what is it going to look like 10 or 20 years from now? When we sit back and we look back and go, what have we done? Or, boy, look at what we learned and look where we're at now. And I think the church might look significantly different than what we experienced ourselves when we were youth, or even today. So I want you to take a minute. I've got some, we're gonna go to, that was my formal presentation where I actually had notes. And I've got a handout for you and we're gonna go over the handout together. And while I'm handing that out, I want you to turn to your neighbor, whoever you're sitting near. And I want you to share something from your church childhood. Now, if you didn't attend church, something from your childhood that was really special and meaningful to you that people just don't do anymore, or that it's been just kind of lost or let go. Is that clear? All right, share among yourselves and I'm gonna pass out some handouts.
Good morning. And I am looking at the name.
Well, I went to a Danish church and a Danish church, was in Minneapolis. And now I go back and I still find my apartment. Like the names are gone. They've all been. Oh, they're, and the family members are. Nowadays, yeah, like when I was with my mom, I think it was more than. And on Saturday and Sunday, I want to sleep in. I don't know, that's how I feel. That's Saturday, yeah. It's not going anywhere. But as it all.
Thank you.
Oh, I guess I have these out. Get to the problem. Yeah, and I can get what's.
Yes.
Yes.
I do. We did high school, college.
Right. I went to a Lutheran college, so I can imagine to their job. Because it was more. Interesting. Yeah. And that happened to change. Yeah, I mean, because other than being smart. Yeah. I feel like it's a failure, but I did everything I could. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You became, yeah.
And then we're gonna come back to the same.
Yeah. Riding with yourself. Connected.
Once you start the ball rolling in a small group of people talking, sometimes it's hard to get back to you. Does it want to share something from their group that you heard, maybe something you had in common with somebody?
So.
Something that you.
Yeah.
You missed.
We got buried here.
Martha?
And,
I think a lot of it here. I know order. Yeah. Yeah, that's their generation. That's great. Anybody else?
I think it's great that the kids have been involved with the prayers. During the time, as you said, that talking about regret, the youth or the young girl that helped serve the community morning after I started, we're thinking now. I should have said thank you for help, for sharing with me, for doing this with me, but I didn't think of that until after. But you know, even that same thank you and involving them in serving community today, like today, and sharing in the prayers and then whatever other way they can be involved in the service and get them involved.
Sure.
Maybe part of what the rest of us do as adults.
No, thank you, Marty.
I don't have anything problem with them picking up trash and wiping. Service is a very rewarding thing if they get acknowledgement for it.
Sure.
And there can be adults there as well, so they don't feel like they're the slaves. But I really think service in any fashion and acknowledgement, it goes a long way. Doesn't matter if you're the head person or the leader. There was one really, she was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I don't have a problem telling them that, even if I don't know.
Sure.
I saw a kid today, he had this name tag printed fabulously, his name. And it was so well done. I said, did you do that? He goes, yeah. I mean, just stuff like that. I mean, now that kid can print. If he got on a poster or something.
Yeah.
That's something that's.
We just need more ways to.
Yeah, and I'm glad you named that. It's not about service projects. It's about just grunt work because we'll get the youth to do it. You know, that kind of thing. It's the purpose behind what we're doing. You know, if we're doing, and also doing it alongside of them.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anybody else? So I gave you a handout and we're gonna look at the side that says faith formation, what do we know? And this is filled with research. I'm not gonna read it all to you. We're gonna talk about parts of it. I just thought I threw the few research in there just to let you know, in the United States in 2020, because it's a very recent survey, is 30% is classified as being religiously unaffiliated. Now, and 64% are Christian. Well, just because they are religiously unaffiliated doesn't mean they don't believe in God. It just means that they're not choosing to engage in a community, faith community. Which I thought was kind of a cool statistic. What are parents worried about today? You know, we can blame the parents because they're not getting their kids here. Because once they're confirmed, a lot of times our kids graduate out of church and parents kind of say, well, now it's up to you to choose. How many ninth graders choose unless they're connected at the church?
I think where their kids are being pulled in so many different directions.
Yeah.
It's the upward mobility of our upcoming grades and such are are pulling kids in various directions that are, you know, it's like Treasure Island.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, you're right. You're exactly right. And it's really easy to point fingers. I was a parent, not that I'm still a parent, but I don't drive my kids to church
that's a
anymore.
parent, yes.
Yeah, but I still had to worry about their schedules. And in the parents being worried about is, I don't even know if it's in this list, is also on how much stuff they have going on. You know, the pandemic gave us a really rare opportunity to spend time in our households like never before.
Yeah.
And my hope was that it would continue. Well, it hasn't, but from parents that I have talked to and heard from, a lot of them have found something, a nugget, and kept it. Dinner around the table committed at least once a week, where before they didn't do it at all.
Yeah.
You know, things like that. And so we learned from that. But parents worry about a lot of things with their kids, depression, mental anxiety, all that stuff, all the stresses that we put on as parents and the schools put on them to get good grades and to be all those things. And being a star athlete and, you know, a mathlete and, you know, all that good stuff. And so church has been the priority that is the most graceful to let go. Why? Because we love them and we'll take them back. And we'll always be open to them. Now, if a kid is really burnt out during basketball season and says, I can't make the game, he's not gonna probably start the next game. He's gonna probably be sitting on the bench. We don't bench our kids. You know, and so we have to have grace for all the things parents are facing. I threw in some income stuff around there because I think that's also very interesting, that that parents with different economic and socioeconomic levels worry about some different things. You know, I was talking to the kids at Second Sunday when we last met, and do you worry about violence in schools? And every one of them said, yeah, we do. They're worrying about getting shot when they go to school. Did we do that? No. No, my kids, you know, who are 32 down to 25, they didn't worry about that either. This is a recent thing. And so it's scary, and they've got a lot on their minds. So vibrant households of faith. So I found this really interesting. As part of the Gen On Ministries, I went as a consultant out to them. They were doing a Lilly Grant project. And we had all this research, and Barna put together some research that described Christian households. And there was, you know, the ones, the dormant, I think that was the name, the dormants didn't do anything and this and that and the other. But the one that really fascinated me was the vibrant one. What does it mean to be a vibrant household of faith? And those are the top things. Talk about God or faith together weekly, okay? Pray together every day or two. Now, this could even include the final five at night, when you say your prayers at, you know, then at night. Read the Bible together weekly. Now, this was not, these were not Lutherans they were pulling. This is every Christian. This is a bunch of different denominations. And this was the fascinating one. To be a vibrant household of faith, you needed to welcome non-family members as visitors at least several times a month. Now, to be just devotional families, which is the next category, you did all these things, except you didn't have people over. So I don't know what that means. I don't have the answer to this, but I'm kind of fascinated with this. Pastor Sarah and I were talking a couple of weeks ago about this study, and we were wondering, what does it mean to have people over to your house that aren't part of your family? It means you have friends? You know, what does it mean? Do you get a whole family over? Is it just, it didn't say. But what is it about inviting someone into your home that makes your faith household, your household of faith vibrant? I don't know, just something to do.
It isn't about you, it's about them.
Yeah, maybe so. And so how can we use this nugget to change how we do something here? You know, I don't know that either.
And the non-family members, if it's a family that observes any of those three or all three of them, they're gonna see something different in that household.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe the way people speak to each other or the actions, because people reflect their faith
Yeah,
and that's visible.
yeah. This is, You made me think of something. Mike and I have been watching The Amazing Race, old ones, right? You know what to do last part of the day. So we're watching the one with the families. I think it was season 8. And there was a family that professed to be Christians. And in their car, they prayed to Jesus. They would do well, and they talked about God a lot in their family. But they were the ones that talked the worst about everybody else. They pointed and it was funny because Mike turned to me and he said, "Aren't these the ones that are the kind of the Bible beaters?" I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "What's up with that?" It's kind of interesting. So I love that you said that when people come over to your home, that you're probably not calling them names and things like that, that you're demonstrating that Jesus-centered type thing. It doesn't say they did Bible study. It just said they came over. Yeah.
And the words.
So how can we be that to when guests come to our house, our building here? All right.
I have just something that's on my whole heart. I struggle with names and children in particular for a couple of reasons, because I don't see them on a regular enough basis that I connect, even if they wear a name tag. And last week when we had our little lesson together, I remember that I had Kira
Yep.
and Kayla
Yep.
at the table, and I know what they look like now.
Yep.
And that was helpful, but I'm trying to figure out how can I extend and get better with names?
Practice.
Like Lee calls people by name, when he greets, and I don't have that gift. And yet I think making kids feel a part of the community is if they feel noticed by name.
Yeah.
And we feel that connection. So how can we increase that? I can look people up on Breeze, the adults, but I don't know who those kids are,
And we're trying to get pictures in there, you know, and that's one of the reasons that we've been doing
even of the
this.
kids.
Yeah, and I hear you. I called your grandson Lucas the other day, because I know more
That's
Lucas
closer.
than, oh, no. He told me, oh, I am not Lucas, I am Luke. And kids don't mind being asked again and again, you know, and they don't mind saying, "Oh, that's not my name." I also mix your granddaughters up once in a while, and they set me straight a lot too. I also have that problem. I don't have a skip for the remembering names as well as I should. So,
So that was one comment I made about, whatever that question was, that the Deacon Jennifer put out about feeling our connection here. And I said that, being Christ unto each other, but also the fact that instead of just saying hi, it's about, it's hi Marge, and that means so much to hear your name said instead of just a general.
not just for the
That happens
kids.
here.
All of us want to be called by names. That's why we were name tags. Because all of us suffer from that singing again. You know, we don't remember. A lot of us don't, and we need help with that.
So make sure they're not put away quickly, because this morning, I'm the one who gets here late. I'm sorry, it's a long story. It's me every Sunday. And the name tags were already, Eric was putting them
Eric
away.
is a very
I am
tiny
not,
guy.
he is a great guy, but I would put the name tags away after the service and not at like 9:37.
I will. Thank you.
And some churches have beautiful wooden name tags.
Oh, we
I'm
used
not
to have
saying-
those.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm
do you
not-
know why we don't? There's a really good answer, because then you know for the members and who aren't. And we don't want visitors to go, "Oh,
Got it.
yeah." It evens the playing field.
No, that's like.
Yeah.
That's really.
But yeah, name tag needs to stay.
And
on
then
the
people will
wall.
wear them home and forget them and lose them and, yeah, go.
I wear it to the grocery store.
I often go out to my favorite restaurant after church. You know my name.
You know, maybe I've got a unique situation, except the fact that I've been with people my own age. And of course, certain people have memory problems. But I have no problem asking somebody else their name. I never used to do that. But I do realize that people do like to hear their name. So it isn't hi, just good day, it's hi, so-and-so.
Remember when I told you about having 100
You know,
kids show up?
And I think as you start that,
Yeah,
asking one's name, I think it becomes easier for you to you started to remember.
Yeah.
And they're willing to let you know what their name is. Well, how come you forgot my name? You know, you don't get that.
Yeah.
They're willing to come forth with their name, so it all worked out in that fashion.
play a little game in your head. get to know the kids, when I had those 100 kids show up at my youth group, is I put the adjective in front. You know, like laughing Lucy, or,
Oh.
you know, somber
Memory
Sue,
aid.
I don't know. Anyway, but you know what I mean, so sometimes that helps too. All right, the last one on the front sheet here is 19 continuous hours together. This Dr. Roger, I don't even know how you say his last name. Anyway, I've listened to a bunch of his YouTube things. And every time he talks, he changes that number, but it's always high. One time it was 48, one time it was 17, so I just picked 19 because I heard that more often. But the importance of retreats, groups need to be together for at least 19 hours to build solid, strong groupness. And so when we meet, I'm going to use confirmation now as an example. When we meet for 45 minutes on a Wednesday night, we can establish groupness if the next Wednesday night, the exact same kids are there. The minute something changes, we start over to hour one again. So in order for that continuity, so those relationships get built, you have to be together for this amount of time, 12, 15, 19, I kind of like the 19-hour thing. And so what does that tell us about how we're leading our kids? I mean, it kind of blew my mind that it changes. But if you think about it, even in friend groups, when there's somebody missing, it's different. So what does that tell us about how we're teaching confirmation?
Are kids interested in weekend retreats or walk-ins and that kind of stuff?
We're talking about doing something like this. But what's gonna happen is tournaments, games,
Yes.
practices. So we have to be really careful to think about this to see who we're gonna leave behind, because we don't wanna do that. But if what we're doing isn't working, what do? This is hard.
We shorten confirmation, the process.
You mean,
Have it in where they. Well, it's too long.
you mean 3 years is too long,
Yeah.
not the 45 minutes on.
Way too long. Also get them confirmed before they get to high school. Who can compete with high school? The choirs go to Greece every couple of years, so they go to Italy.
Yeah.
There's marching band, there's, all of these activities that never used to be there. The public, you know, we pay for it, but, and when it goes away, we scream, holler, the parents, and they go do the funding again, and it all comes back. Like when they decided to take music out and all that stuff, and arts. You know, I think parents come back. The public school is phenomenal right now in what they offer kids. And if parents care about their kids, they get them into something.
Sure.
So in my opinion, 3 years is way too long to decide to get confirmed. I have too much going on, and young youth look at it as saying, you know, how can I choose? And my parents are sort of on the fence, you know, they moan about having to take me to church or whatever. I just think it's way too long. And I feel like if you get them there the first time, you explain the process, how long it's gonna take, and that you need to commit. And just shorten it up. And
But a lot of times, once kids are confirmed, then like you said,
Yeah, but
they're
they're
not
not
so
so
easily, and they get confirmed earlier, then they're just done.
let me know time, they're coming to church as part of the process. If you still get them there, it's high school that they can't do it. Trust me, they can't do it. They're either sleeping, eating, or on the phone or on the internet, and they can't do it anymore. It's changed. That's my point.
I think too.
I sort of disagree because I think that's up to their parents to set the rules. Like basically, how much time they should be on the internet, how many times, hours they can with their cell phone. And I think it's up to the parents to get them into the church and confirmation.
Studies say you're right.
Confirmation last century, a long time ago. But the thing, I know we had Saturday mornings, and we had the catechism, it was the small catechism, and we had to learn it by heart. And it was a book about yay big, and the thing is, on the confirmation day, we didn't know what answers we had to, questions we had to answer. But the thing is, the pastor stood there and asked, so what is this passage and what does it mean? And we had to know what.
I know, I did that kind of confirmation.
Well, part of it is a societal thing too, I think. Because it used to be that Wednesdays, there weren't any sports. It was left open for church. And everybody did their confirmation or whatever on Wednesdays. Now there's dance recitals on Sunday. There's, all kinds of tournaments on the weekend.
Yep.
So, and part of that, I'm sure, is the fact that we have so many religions now.
Yeah.
And not, it used to be pretty much all Christian, but it's not anymore. And so, but it used to be that society kind of built into that.
Right, what a rich tapestry we have of all these different things around us. Michael,
Okay, so I'm living and breathing it right now, obviously,
Are you?
with my two kids. A couple of things running through my mind is one, I wonder, would it be helpful if we were to be very intentional with developing like, I don't know, a value proposition that we could offer or communicate to families in my demographic, I think it's an acknowledgement that we don't expect you to be here every Sunday. We promise to get your kids active in the service, whatever those 4 or 5 things are. And then, personally reaching out to families that we know used to come here, but are not here right now. We know some of them went to other churches, and that's, but to your point, we always want the people back, but I think sometimes. And my guess is sometimes probably need a nudge. 'Cause I think if, for example, if I hadn't been here for 2 or 3 years. I would be like,
It's
"Dude,
hard to
it's
go
hard
back."
to come back. How I be perceived, will I be judged, well.
Yeah.
So I think if we could say, look, we want. We have a new pastor, we have a new information director, like whatever. If you, maybe I would bring here, but if you were to catch someone at the grocery store for 1 minute, like what would you tell them
yeah,
about grace?
Get your
Like, we should be
elevator.
able to communicate that.
those are called elevator speeches. Get your elevator speech ready so you can jump in there and do that.
If we all had the same elevator speech, we can invite, like personally reach out to these
Yeah.
families that
Yeah,
are still in Breeze or just,
Yeah. for the church to go after a member who is left, for whatever reason,
Yeah.
costs way more resources and money than it is to invite somebody new in. But to your point, people that are just embarrassed or just are not sure how to come back in, that's great. Elevator speech. Marcia?
We moved from Michigan to California back in the early 80s, and our kids were in junior high and high school when going to church was a little tough for them. We walked into this church, Lutheran church, and sitting on the side, all the kids sat together. The high school kids were all sitting together. And our son Dave went, whoa, and they did. We said, I don't care where you sit. Sit with the kids, it's fine. And they did. And that to me was such a welcoming thing for our kids. They're not stuffed between parents when they're in high school or junior high. They want to be on their own, and they were fine. And he wanted to go because he wanted to be with those kids.
Yeah, some churches have that culture. I think it's awesome. I saw.
Another thing I really appreciate, I think sometimes you talked about retreats, but maybe even making those intergenerational retreats. We went with Grace a couple of times to the winter retreat. We've done the summer one. But it does give you an experience, and sometimes outdoor ministries or the Gus Davis thing sounds wonderful, but maybe we need to support families with that. Maybe a given should be that every child's tuition or child and a family member will be given the scholarship so that people don't feel set apart. And it's a big thing, it's a big expense to families who are living paycheck to paycheck to all of a sudden look at whatever the cost is for that kind of a program. But I just think that brings people together, it gives them your 19 continuous hours, because all well, not all, but so many people say, that was changing my life, that service week or that camp experience. I'm different now. And then to continue that with the people that you've experienced it with, I just think that's a good way to go.
If you turn your page over, Marla's, that was a great segue into this. We've just got a few minutes left, and I know there's more things to say, but I want to talk about that intergenerational component. Worship, they used to say, is an intergenerational thing. It is. It's multi-generational. Multi-generational is when you're bringing people together of all different ages. Intergenerational is when you're actually purposefully doing something with them. Because as sitting together, we're passive in those pews, we're listening, and maybe we're talking to our neighbor if that's part of the thing, we go up in communion and stuff, but that isn't building relationships. Intergenerational ministry builds relationships, and that's what is key to keeping those young people interested. Because after they've got confirmed and now they're in high school, those busy high school kids, if they've made connections with somebody in their congregation, not just their friends, but an adult that isn't their parent or family member, they are much more likely to come back into the church for different things. So how do we use that information? The generations together, I've got lots of statistics there. It enhances their sense of belonging. Remember when I said, why are kids leaving? Because they're not connected. This is how you connect to kids. It's funny, we've been talking about what a retreat-style confirmation would look like. And what would it look like to involve our congregation in it as well? We do Lenten mentoring. For those of you that are here on Wednesday nights, it's a beautiful thing to walk into the sanctuary and see about 6 different groups of kids there, kids in the hallways, kids all over the place, engaged in conversation with questions that don't have to do about the Bible or Jesus sometimes. It's about living life together and connecting them. And so read through those Generations of Faith project, and then the 10 factors shaping each stage of life is just really interesting information developmentally where kids are at and where youth are at. But there is a lot of hope out there. But here's what, as a faith formation director, here's what I need from my church community, is that the pushback to, that's not how we've done it before, or went back, we used to have this. That isn't helpful. What is helpful is saying, how can I help? How can we make this happen? So when we propose something new next year, it might be really shocking. We might get rid of a 45-minute every Wednesday night confirmation because it's not working. I mean, I love those kids. And I love getting to know them. Guess where I got to know them? It was on Sunday, here, when we did a retreat. I'm gonna leave you with this story. So 7th grade, Mike and I led the group. We were here for worship. Most of them were here, not all of them. And then they either could sit down in here and listen to the forum, or they could come up and help me with GBS. Then we had pizza and some free time in the youth room. And then for 3 hours, we had our topic that we needed to talk about. And so we would talk about a snippet, and then we would go play some games. And these dang 7th graders said, can we play hide and go seek? And I said, no, that's a dorky game. We're gonna play sardines. So sardines is just the opposite of hide and go seek. We sent one kid out to hide somewhere in the church with enough room for others to join them. And then everybody else tried to find them. And when you found that kid, you joined them. Now, as the group got to be more than 2 or 3, they start to giggle, and it was easy to find them. They had never played sardines. How sad is that? They were in 7th grade and hadn't played that yet. And one of the boys said to me toward the end of the day, can we do this every Sunday? And I said, no. But we can do it more often. So I did promise them a lock-in. We'll probably do this the last week of April. Do the 19 continuous hours. So after, getting that statistic back in my mind, instead of starting at 7 p.m., I might start it right after school, or maybe go till noon, except they'll be sleeping. But spend that good time together. So what do we take from that? Is that kids bonded. That next Wednesday night after the Sunday was Lenten services. And these kids were coming in and they were knuckling and high-fiving, both Mike and I, and they were excited. And the dad came up to me and said, I don't know what you did, but my kid wants to come back. That's all we want, is for them to come back. So let's close with prayer. Gracious God, thank you for each of the individuals in this room, that they care enough about the generations of faith and learning together and growing together. And they care about the church community. God, we know you have a plan. We know the Spirit is here and leading us and guiding us and challenging us to try new things with open hearts. Keep us safe as we leave this place until we're back together again. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, everybody.